Since we are a mixed crowd, I think it's interesting for you to hear that my background is in astrophysics and my specialty in this field is computational fluid dynamics. I want to talk today about ideas on self-replicating structures. I said von Neumann's ideas, which are pretty old. In fact, I will also comment on some more recent developments. What is it all about? What you're going to hear is a little excursion in the field of mathematical biology or astrobiology. It is about cellular automata. I fear, yesterday I've seen your name, Sten, your name on the slide of yours mentioned in this respect. I should say I'm not working in the field, I'm just reporting on something, so you would have been perhaps the better speaker in this field, so I'm afraid that just very elementary stuff that I'm presenting here. Actually, my curiosity was, I got curious about it after having seen an article in Scientific American by Moshe Silver and James Cragion, which the story went in that I gave a journal club talk in my home institution about this, what these guys have presented in this article. Later on I was, due to this, asked to give an undergraduate lecture on astrobiology with this respect. And now, after having talked to Axel about it, now I'm standing here and talking at a workshop about this without having done any research myself in the field. So that's the reason why I wrote here easy listening. So I just present some basic stuff. But I still hope that the one or the other topic is still interesting for you. As I said, I will comment on some recent development, but also give it mostly or much of an historic angle, talking about the ideas of John von Neumann related to the problem of infinite regress, what this is, I will come to in a minute, and the invention of cellular automata. Generally, self-replication of structures, organisms, if you want also machines, is, machines I should avoid, was, at least historically, or is considered as a key property of life. And historically, it was considered as one feature that clearly separating the living from the non-living, also due to the lack of understanding how this comes about, surrounded by an aura of mystery. This changed a little bit in the aftermath of the Renaissance, perhaps also with the ongoing technological progress that came about during this period. One started to ask whether animals or humans are just another form of mechanical automata. Or conversely, one can start to ask the question, can machines replicate? Okay, now what I'm going to talk about is actually a mathematical abstract approach to study self-replicating organisms, machines, structure as you want. I'm going to use now these terms later in my talk interchangeable. So I have not say a cell or a machine explicitly in mind. It should relate to all of this. The nice thing about mathematics is it's very general and universal, and this has, of course, due to this, a particular bearing on astrobiology, since up to now we know only life as it has evolved and exists on Earth. One is, of course, confronted with the question of how far this is the features of life here on Earth are universally present in life in the universe. Okay, the problem of infinite regress. If you want to build a self-replicating machine, this machine is supposed to build an identical copy or version of itself, supposed to be next to itself. Something that needs to be a part of this machine is a complete description of itself, meaning it must incorporate a construction and operation plan which describes itself. If you think about it for a moment, I have to say I've thought about it quite a while to understand this is in fact a problem. This situation creates a recursive problem. namely the complete description must also include a description of itself. And this description must also include the description of the description of itself, and so on. You immediately see you run into a recursion, not terminating recursion. Yeah. When I saw that, I started to become a little bit confused. You might ask, oh, what's the heck? Why not make a simple copy? But perhaps this relates to the question, can be a complex structure like a living cell or a more complicated machine copied without insight, without understanding how this thing comes about? Think about, for example, if you want to build a copy of a laptop without the knowledge of semiconductor technology and what else is entering this. This is perhaps not possible. Humans up to now were able to build some things like photocopiers, you can copy keys and files in a computer, but these are still things of quite simple structure. Nobody has devised yet any machine which is capable to copy a complex thing like a car or a laptop. This problem of infinite regress was realized by John von Neumann in the late 1940s. John von Neumann, an eminent Hungarian American mathematician, lived from 1903 to 1957. He realized this. He also pointed out the solution to this problem, namely the information carrying structure, the self-description of the machine, must be used in a twofold manner. First of all, its contents has to be really understood and interpreted as a construction plan of the machine. But also, the contents must be at some point copied in an uninterpreted manner to avoid this infinite regress. Historically, it is interesting that von Neumann realized this before biologists actually understood the structure and the role of the DNA in living cells. Just as a reminder to you, it's now a little bit more than 50 years ago that Watson and Crick published their famous paper, a structure for this oxyribose nucleic acid in Nature. When I looked it up, I was very surprised to see that it's just one page. So one page, if it's the right one, can buy you the Nobel Prize. Okay, and today, of course, we know that DNA is exactly used in this twofold fashion. On the one hand side, it is interpreted during protein synthesis. So, the base triples are read off and interpreted as a construction plan for proteins. But also it is copied in an uninterpreted manner during the build-up of complementary strands. Due to the fact that von Neumann realized these things, quite often self-replicating machines are today called von Neumann machines. Von Neumann was not content with understanding or seeing this problem. He also wanted to devise, now having gained this insight, a machine which is actually capable of self-replication. However, machine engineering in our real world is pretty complicated. A machine, for example, has to fulfill certain mechanical requirements. You have to supply energy. So it was clear that that there was no way at that time to really build something real based on the knowledge coming from this insight in this role of information carrying structures. As a mathematician, von Neumann, together with another mathematician, Stanislav Ulam, took another approach, namely inventing a universe which was better suited for this construction he had in mind, namely a toy universe which is now known as cellular automata, which is much simpler and allow this sort of conceptual study focusing on the information flow of this self-replicating machines. Okay, what is a cellular automata? Yes, you already heard about it, but just want to quickly brush over it. You have to imagine it as a chessboard-like grid of squares or cells, ideally infinite. Cells can be in a number of certain states. States of the states of the cells evolve in discrete time steps according to states of the state of the cell itself and its nearest neighbors. In looking at this, you see that this CA model universe is strictly local, governed by local interaction, and strictly deterministic. You might say, okay, this is very simple, but still it has some bearings on the physical world we know, since quite a number of physical laws and important physical laws are of this nature, of this local and deterministic nature. For example, Maxwell's equations, which govern electrodynamics, fall into this category. As a mathematician, John von Neumann was not only didn't only want to build something that can replicate, but he was even able to devise a pattern in the cellular automaton universe, which he called universal constructor, which is in fact able to generate any pattern which you want in this CA universe, including itself. So it is an example of self-replicating structure. For the construction of this universal constructor, this insight of the twofold role of the information-carrying components was crucial. This universality was of interest since it also allowed, in principle, that one could devise evolving structures. Drawback was that the von Neumann's universal constructor was is very complicated. Its description has about the length of a book. The underlying CA is quite complex, involves 29 cell states. The size is about 200,000 cells. It's even demanding in terms of computing time. And in fact, the first implementation of this constructor was done in 1959, so quite recently. So people really programmed this thing and did some simulation in a computer. Okay, in some sense, this was a proof of concept, and due to the fact that these cellular automatons have a resemblance to some degree, the real world, one might now be assuming or suspecting that it's also possible in the real universe, real world, is able to build such a thing like a universal constructor. When I was preparing myself for this talk, I was this is now an objection. I stumbled over a very recent paper, people who claim that, in fact, the universal constructor is not possible to devise if you have a universe obeying quantum mechanics. And our world is, in fact, of quantum mechanical nature on the basic level. So this renders this statement perhaps a little bit questionable. One might start to think what this result means for the interpretation of living structure, the existence of living structures in our universe. I don't go into this in more detail. It was just something I wanted to mention. This is a very recent development. Due to the complexity, now the development in this field followed now a little bit along the path of asking, are there simpler alternatives than the universal constructor devised by von Neumann? Before getting to this, I just wanted to show the snapshot of the original universal constructor by von Neumann. This is the implementation of Cosavento and Ludwig, which I mentioned before, from 1995. This is a snapshot during the situation where the universal constructor tries to generate a copy of itself. The universal constructor is this thing, at least this is the interpreting unit of this material. Or I should say, you have to think about it as a grid with very fine cells. The resolution is here so low you can't identify the individual cells. Cell states are coded as colors here. I think we are producing this colored thing sitting there. In fact, This is a one-dimensional, long band which has been folded just for getting it into the picture, into this block-like thing. So in fact, this is a long one-dimensional strand. You might think of it as the information structure. If you want, this is the DNA of the universal constructor. This thing is reading this band off, taking the information, sitting there, interprets it, and builds here next to the copy of itself. You can see it's half done. If you compare this part with this, and you see that it shows some close resemblance. In the end, there will be a last copying step where this information sitting in this strand is attached to this constructor, unique generic constructor, to allow this thing to replicate it again. So, okay, question of are there similar alternatives? You perhaps all have seen this example. This is John Horton Conway's invention, cellular automata called Life. It's back in 1970, which is pretty simple. It has only two states, cell states, and on and off.
Can I just ask, I mean, basically what you have here is your constructor reads an input and produces an output.
Yes.
So isn't it almost like a Turing machine? Just, I mean, you have some physical interpretation of this making an object, isn't it? Just you have an input and linear output.
Yeah, but it's more than a Turing machine. The Turing machine is not necessarily able to copy itself. In fact, the universal constructor has, I think, the property of also being a Turing machine. If you want, you can program it to perform calculations, and all calculations that you possibly can think of. I think that's how I understood it.
The real equivalent with this way is Christian. Christian, his life actually is focused on all these things.
Okay.
But as far as I understand, now you have to correct me. To implement this cell automata, then you can show a Turing machine. It is, and the Turing machine should, as you also say, be able to do everything. It's something that you implement in a Turing. Or in a universe that's computationally equivalent to Turing machines.
But a Turing machine is basically a very general computer, right? You can do all calculations that you can do, say, with our today's computer. So it's a general purpose computer. But I don't think that a Turing machine as such has the capability of self-replication.
But it's very peculiar the way one has to be extremely careful about the words, and sometimes I mix up, so you have to be careful here in the morning. That as far as I understand, they devised, and it is not so difficult to actually devise a cellular automata that is equivalent in computational power to a Turing machine.
That's true.
Yeah. Oh, and so now just keep that thought. So you have a two-dimensional. The way I understand, you have a two-dimensional lattice. This is how Turing he did it. And in this two-dimensional lattice, you can show its equivalent in computational power to a Turing machine. And in this two-dimensional lattice, he devised a set of rules and a particular set of initial conditions that define this universal constructor. So it's so to say, I don't know whether I'm saying this correctly, it is embedded in this universal Turing world. You have this constructor that is able to replicate itself. Because this one, you can actually build, if I'm not wrong, you can build a universal constructor in, is that what you're going to say?
Yes, that's
all right, there you go.
Going to say.
Isn't it problem? You said that quantum mechanics is embedded in Hilbert space, and everything you talk about with computer is buried in Turing space, one way or another. And this is just embedded in this great space, which is the space in which computing operates. That's one way of expressing it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
So it's great.
Yeah, it's really complicated because one has to be really careful because it's of course nonsense to say that. Well, since our world is quantum mechanical, and somebody has shown that if we use quantum mechanics, we cannot make self-replicators.
Not a universal constructor. This is
okay.
I mean, we know that self-replicating structures exist. So, but this line of reasoning doesn't lead necessarily to this conclusion.
Okay.
Okay. This thing is pretty simple, as I said, but nevertheless, the rules governing this particular automaton are fine-tuned in the sense that a fine balance between unconditional growth of patterns and their disappearance is, say, built in. A second feature, which I'm not sure whether it's of importance, is that the rules are time asymmetric, so we have a clear direction of evolution in this cellular automaton. This particular example is just a periodic pattern which spits out these small things here, which are called gliders, which have the feature of moving with a certain speed and a straight line through this cellular automaton lattice. And why I mention it, I come to it in a moment. Well, the simplicity I pointed out is in some sense deceptive, since in fact this automaton is among the simplest examples of a system showing emergent complexity in self-organization, perhaps comparable to what we also observe in nature in a colony of insects. John Conway himself showed that one can realize logical gates, performing logical or realizing logical functions in this automaton, which together with glider streams, which serve as electrical signal, allow to build a computer. And here we are principally capable of building a universal Turing machine. So in this sense, it allows us to build a live, general purpose, however unpractical computer. This also means that one in principle could emulate every other cellular automaton within this automaton. This means one could in principle also emulate Feynman's CA. And this leads to the conclusion that one could also build a universal constructor in life. So that also self-replicating structures exist in life. No self-replicating structures have been explicitly constructed yet. So the development now goes even further, trying to find even simpler examples of self-replication. And this is an example of Sittler and Reglia, which I initially mentioned for this article. This is now you see really the lattice, the chessboard. The pieces of chess here are now just symbolizing the 8 cell states which are used to kind of construct this, or used to encode the cell states in this CA. And in fact, this structure that you see here is their ingeniously constructed self-replicating structure in this CA universe. And I have no time to go into it in more detail, but in fact, these two pieces, this bishop and this knight, are forming the self-description of this replicator, self-replicating structure. How much time do you have left?
Yeah, I think we should probably stop pretty quick so soon so that we can get some time. So,
but I started late, right? Right. I think you should see at least once. There are very few pictures or figures in my talk. You should see at least once this cellular automaton at work, how it replicates. And I'll just play a number of. Yeah. Here you see now this loop, this thing started here, now has merged again next to it. One step further. There's now an identical copy of it generated here. Okay, so let's go a little bit ahead. A little bit bigger. Rows. If you look closely, I think the size is of course not very small. See here an identical copy, here, and soon there will be identical. Here is one identical, here is in a different phase. So there are more and more of this just merging.
The rest is there.
The rest is but just that material, yes. Okay. This is so simple, what you have seen, that you might ask the question, is this real self-replication? Has that some bearing on life? Of course, one would demand that replication should be a result of collective interaction, not just a simple part of the rules governing the CA universe. This respect you might ask yourself, for example, from that perspective, does computer virus qualify as a self-replicating structure? Or challenging new IOM cells that you try to construct from this perspective, self-replicating living beings. The very recent development now is, instead of constructing these self-replicating structures by hand, people started to use the Darwinian evolution of the set of rules governing the CA universes in order to find CAs which support self-replication. As you can imagine, the challenge in this respect is to find a measure of fitness, since usually you start with a CA which is sterile, not supporting self-replication. How do you measure the ability of self-replication. It turns out one needs a growth measure, how well material is supplied in this CA universe. It helps if stuff is kept together, so you need, or it turns out that the relative position measures useful in finding such a measure of fitness. And in the end, of course, you also want to know how well your stuff replicates, so the more better, so as a last criterion, one wants to add this. Okay, I'm almost done. So, interestingly, this set of rules, which are found in this more automatically governed search, shows that the rules are often rotationally non-symmetric. And one might start to speculate whether this has something to do with the chirality of the other molecules. And quite often the self-replicating patterns which emerge in this automatically constructed CAs have no easily identifiable set description. One starts to speculate whether the DNA-like information storage in the sense that it's non-distributed, just sit in one structure is actually necessary. I put question marks there, it's just something to think about. Okay, last slide. I hope I've convinced you, or reminded you that CAs are a useful mathematical model for studying the information flow of self-replicating structures. That historically this all was spawned by the realization of these infinite regress by John von Neumann, and the related solution of this other role of the information flow in the structures in self-replicating systems. We have seen that the newly discovered rules and patterns that there might be interesting connections to real features in life. And of course, due to the fact that we are looking at things at a high level of abstraction, it's probably also very relevant for extraterrestrial life. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you for an excellent review of all these important ideas, and I'm sure that comments and suggestions.
Just a quick comment to that little one. Self-replication in chess is something you are claiming against Hacker Brand Computer 1917, this was a review using high mainframe, the VB11 interface. And I did what I thought was quite a good move. It's so complex a computer, it replicated all my pieces until they're all in notes.
Okay.
I think you might be used to that. It's self-defense, it's self-replication. It's a tough move, I reckon.
No, I just want to make a few comments and compliments also. First of all, it is true that this is, in many ways, you sort of reiterated many of the goals and the main points that the community of artificial intelligence has been working on for a long time. So I believe with you that we can actually learn a lot about both life as we know it here, and life perhaps elsewhere by using these abstract mathematical machines. And in particular, there's two things. I never heard about this thing about chirality, but I've been wondering, and many people in our community have been wondering why you have this highly what is it called? Isotropic rules when you have self-replication. And I've never thought about this connection with chirality. That's a new one. We should don't forget that.
This is, as I said, was just
no, but this is good. And then, but there's one thing that I feel is really important that most of us tend to forget. We keep to focus when we talk about life. For some reason we always want to think about DNA. And DNA, from my perspective, is something that comes very late, and it is an abstraction that these self-replicating systems have invented that seems to be very, very efficient. But life is much more than DNA. If you look at all these things that has to, just look at modern cells, they're surrounded with all these incredible organelles, and the key, substance around there is not encoded in the DNA, it comes from self-assembly. So a number of, this is what you also alluding to again, that a number of the information is distributed. And certainly it is also distributed as we know it. It's in the membrane, it's in all the organelles. And even though there is in contemporary life that we have a regulation from the core of the cell where the DNA about how these divisions and things happen when we replicate, certainly, I mean, all the knowledge, quote unquote, the knowledge about how the physics is operating at this very local level is not encoded anywhere. So that's, I mean, I think to understand, at least that's what I believe, to understand life elsewhere, we have to remember that, not only focus on the library of all the information storage in contemporary living systems. That's the point.
Sorry, could I make a more serious point than before? I want to attack this whole concept of input regress. I think it's in fact even wrong, because it arises from false and subtle illusions, which is you have a machine. The machine itself has to evolve, and it is so according to natural physical laws, without any blueprints or plans or anything. And therefore it's self-encoded already. It already knows about itself, and if you like, if you want to be some comments about it, it's encoded in the fundamental of those physical laws which we set out in the first place. You only get that problem in regress when you do what they did in Little Village in Cotswolds called Bottom of the Water, which is to build model of Bottom of the Water inside Bottom of the Water. The model has a model inside, so on, and infinitum. So if you start with a false starting illusion, you invent yourself a problem which doesn't actually exist in reality. It exists in the model, but not in reality. Therefore, I don't think it's something which one should concern oneself with when building mathematical models. It seems to me they should be related to fundamental reality rather than something which is a product of your way of thinking, which is many of my moments of thinking. You are all interested in computers rather than life.
So this means that you would see the situation that's parallel in the actual way DNA is used itself as a coincidental.
Well, it comes back to what you were just saying a moment ago. We talk about the primacy of DNA, and there's also talk about epigenetic. There's a whole kind of American issue about it in the last month. The concept, the important concept, the one that Schrödinger, I think, came out with in one is about the concept of coding. And the DNA, when he wrote that book, he never believed at that time the coding was done by amino acids actually, but that didn't actually matter to the book terribly.
Yeah.
But because the concept was there. And
No,
so the point, the idea of coding is fundamental, and whether it's DNA or whether it's something else is sort of a combination of these things. It's not a mathematical model to totally important. But the different regress, I really think is a red herring.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it comes once you accept that most the most important quote-unquote information about itself is embedded in physics and structure, then this problem goes away. And just
of course that's just tech, and that's just words.
But it's our interpretation of what is just dumb copying and what is interpretive interaction. Because if you think about, go back to our system here, so all the dumb copying would be the self-assembly and also the base pairings just due to the physics. And the interpretation in our DNA would be how well it conducts currents, or how well it transfers these positive charges. This is how it's interpreted, and in a way it's nonsense because it's all physics.
Yeah, but you can perhaps see it in this way that you have to reduce the complexity of your structure to be copied to a so low level that this elementary physical laws are actually doing the final trick for you, doing the final copying step.
What do you mean by interpretation? Because I mean, basically to me it's just Darwinism that whatever works, whatever give what want is being selected, and so in that sense, physics goes all the way up.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question. Let me try to clarify. I'm saying that yes, you as a human, with our understanding of the world, we can interpret that some of the interactions we see, some of the dynamics we see is an interpretation. For instance, DNA is being interpreted by the ribosomes to produce proteins. Right? I mean, we can do that, and it makes sense. And I'm just saying that there is something, we should not take that too literally, because that as is pointed out over there, that introduces this infinite regress problem that doesn't really exist in the world if we are thinking about self-replication. And also, once you get these systems simpler and simpler and simpler, at some point it almost becomes meaningless to make this distinction. And I'm saying down where we have these very simple self-replicating systems, well, if we want to use this more sophisticated distinction between interpretation and non-interpretation, then the physics that has to do with conducting a charge is interpretation, whereas the physics that has to do with keeping the things together is not interpretation. Yeah, you can do that, but
Yeah.
There's another point I like about chirality. I mean, I don't think chirality is such a fundamental issue as people insist. It's the nature of chemistry which drives chirality. We could perfectly well have all life based on amino acids. The whole damn thing works perfectly well. Glass biology. The way enzymes work, which is a hand getting in the glove, it takes that you will have things that be chiral. But I doubt it's actually fundamentally, but it just happens as a natural consequence of the nature of the chemistry. I don't want us to overemphasize this is about priority. I think it would be a bit of a... People say you can't understand life unless you first have to understand about why you get L amino acids in meteorites and not D. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's an epiphenomenon rather than a phenomenon itself.
But this is more or less also what you're saying, right? Because you can use your arguments directly and say, because of the structure of these cell automatas, we do get something that you can interpret as chirality. Because if you want to have it all to fit together, you have to you can't just have rotation, symmetry, and all these other nice things you have in the rest of physics, right?
Yeah, if you look at the way, I'm not a biologist, but you can see pictures, and I'm showing you these pictures, but the way that it's described biochemical networks is with X-ray structures, and they find that everything fits fantastically well, but of course it only fits one way around. I mean, that's obvious, I suppose, really.
But yes, I mean, isn't it? I mean, I know you argument that it's free lunch having non-DNA life or sort of different chirality life or so, but I mean, to me, it's striking that there is only DNA life. There's only this one chirality. Why? I mean, even in all extreme places, there's nowhere else. There's anything else on Earth. I mean, that tells me that DNA is very central to life.
Oh, it is.
I mean, everything else being free lunch, I don't really buy that, because I mean, you find the extreme environments where you would think that must be some advantage.
I mean, once nature's got hold of something, it doesn't have hold on. I mean, the hemoglobin in earthworms and hemoglobin is very similar. You know, once you get into a potential minimum, you stay there. In these,
well, I mean, the environment is changing quite a lot. I mean, and you do have different environments and so on. I mean, it's...
These all, and this is great. I mean, we are now, this provoked a talk about, a discussion about all really deep and important and also very difficult topics. So, great. So let's thank you. And the next speaker is